Welcome back to the show. This is Relaks Radio, Relaks, with none other than me, Nick, keeping you guys company and entertained right here on Relaks Radio. You know, we're talking about all these things that is going on in the UK right now. There's a lot of hot stuff happening. In case you guys are wondering, this is me, Nick, on Real Talk, keeping you guys company, keeping you entertained, and, keeping you guys up to date as well with the current affairs in the UK. And hey, if you want to be part of the show, hit me up on those numbers. It is 07852-473-473. Those are the magical numbers. That's right. You can always feel free to hit us up and let us know what your thoughts are. And yeah, if you have any shout outs or dedications, I would be feel free to come this way and let me know. And we're talking about all the things that is happening right now in the UK. And there's a lot of these things that is going on. A lot of pushback as well, especially, with the government and all of that. And one of the things that we will be discussing today is the UK's data, they say, is very encouraging because, like I mentioned yesterday, there has been 0 cases so far this week, what they said. And this is the information that came from the government. And they're saying, okay, this is a very monumental week because, we've not had any deaths so far from the COVID-19 cases, but there has been different issues. There has been a rise in cases. That is a whole different chapter altogether. But it does look promising that the cases especially with regards to the whole COVID situation, it's just great to see, that the number of cases, although it has been rising in such a rise, there's not been any deaths. So that is something that is encouraging to see those numbers right there. And like I said, the UK's latest lockdown data looks very encouraging. And government advisors have said all of this, and they've been debating about whether to end the restrictions in England on the 21st of June or not. And, in my personal opinion, I don't think that they should at any time soon. We have to first analyze and see and make sure this is something that, we can fight, and this is something that, we can handle. But if the government thinks otherwise, who am I to say? They might have scientists and analysts, who can come up with better decisions and hopefully better restrictive methods, I hope. But, these are just some of the things. And if you have any thoughts on that, you can always hit me up and let me know what you think. And also don't forget, like I said, download the app from the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. Carry us all day, every day. And getting back to the matter at hand right now, Sir John Bell, part of the government's vaccine task force, said there needed to be balance to the discussion. So on Tuesday, the UK announced 0 COVID deaths for the first time since the pandemic began. So the Prime Minister reiterated, though, that it is nothing in the data suggests that the next stage of lifting lockdown could not go on ahead. He's saying all these things, but, we have to consider the fact that, like I said, there are going to be situations like this where the government has to play very tentatively, because they don't really know exactly the scene, and they're trying to encourage people. And like I said, governments across the UK, especially in Wales as well, there's been mixed messages. So these are just some of the concerns. And with regards to this, the UK is saying that, okay, Boris Johnson right now is saying that he doesn't see anything wrong and that they can just continue with the lifting of the restrictions. That is a problem when you think about it. Like I said, the numbers of cases are rising. Just because there's not been any deaths, that doesn't mean we should go and try to push, lady luck. And the Prime Minister, like I said, he's reiterated all this, and he said that in the data, according to the data, that we don't really need to undergo any kind of not lifting up the lockdown. So speaking on Wednesday, though, Boris Johnson did go on to say that he remained cautious as it was unclear how protected the population would be against a new surge. And he said data on that was still ambiguous and scientists needed longer to look at it. So he went on to say, I'm sorry that's frustrating for people. I know that people want a clear answer and about way ahead of the 21st of June. But at the moment, we have just got to wait a little bit longer. So there's been concern over a small rise in these cases recently. And this is people have voiced their thoughts on this matter and what the government they think should do and should not do. And a lot of these data as well, from scientists and all around, they are talking about, the possible spread of the more, how this virus is more transmissible than the original virus that we found in the UK. That was the Kent virus. And they're worried about this whole affecting the lockdown. So this virus, the Delta virus, currently known as the Delta virus, which was formerly known as the Indian variant, right now is of marginal importance. Right now, people are concerned about this, and they say, okay, some scientists also, like I said, have declared that have decided and said rather and suggested a delay to the last stage of the government's roadmap. So in England right now, they want to lift the bans, they want to lift the lockdown, but these scientists are stepping forward and saying, okay, look, this is not the most opportune moment to be doing this. This is not something that we should do at the moment. Let's see how it goes, as we go along. Hopefully we can find a way to do this, but let's see how it goes. And yeah, like I said, all this, with relations to all the legal limits and how many people you can meet, this is of concern. So the final decision on whether the relaxation will be, the restrictions rather, will be relaxed, will be decided on the 14th of June. That's when all of the people of the committee will come forward and they'll talk about this. And Sir John, the Regis Professor of Medicine at the University of Oxford, has said that UK's numbers don't look too intimidating, and he was encouraged by what he saw. And however, he said the government was taking a wise approach in being cautious ahead of making its decision. Because like I said, the government has to think about the people and decide, okay, are we going to be doing this? How long are we going to be doing this? And if we do this, what are the implications? How is it going to affect us? That's the thing that, a bunch of these scientists have been discussing on, and the government also has been pondering on this particular point, and they're deciding whether they should do it or whether they shouldn't. That is the real question right there. And like I said, these are just some things. And he went on to say, Sir John also went on to say that I do think that we need to keep our eyes on hospitalization, serious disease, and deaths, which is really what we are trying to manage. So if we scamper down a rabbit hole every time we see a new variant, we are going to spend a long time huddled away. So we do need to keep a bit of balance to the discussion and keep our eyes on the serious disease, that they're right now that we're trying to prevent. And the timetable for relaxing COVID measures varies across the UK at the moment. So in Wales, the health minister has said the easing of restrictions due to be reviewed on Thursday could be affected by a very serious cluster of the Delta variant in Conway County. And it comes a day after the relaxing of these measures. And in Scotland right now, all these relaxing measures were paused for millions of people in these areas that have been rising, where their cases have been rising. And that's also, places like Glasgow is for one instance. So in Northern Ireland also, there's been some restrictions were lifted though on the 24th of May, rather. And the next review is due to be on the 10th of June. So the UK now has reported more than 3,000 new coronavirus cases, infections for 7 days in a row, but hospital admissions remain below 1,000, and compared to the nearly 40,000 during January's peak. So during January, it was a hell of a mess. There was a lot of these things going on. And latest data though from the ONS, or the Office for National Statistics, showed the numbers of weekly COVID deaths were at its lowest since September, and the number of deaths registered in the weekend ending during 21st of May was 115 to 49 fewer than the previous week, and the lowest since 83 were reported for the week ending 4th of September. So the NHS Confederation, which represents health and care leaders, said that the ONS figures were reassuring, but the race is not yet won. We haven't come through out of it unscathed at the moment. So Dr. Layla McKay, Director of Policy, said it is of real concern that cases are climbing quickly, and our members are increasingly worried that this will lead to more hospital admissions. And industry leaders have warned that any change to the proposed dates for relaxing measures and lockdown measures would be devastating for businesses. Because like I said, a lot of these businesses right now at this particular point are gearing up to make sure, they get back out there and they can, get the businesses booming and running again. Because, it's been a really long time now. It's been a really long year as well. Like I said, a lot of these businesses have been closed, and because of the restrictions imposed, they were unable to, sell products, retail, and all of that has been struggling. So right now they are at its final feathers, I'd like to say. And the UK Weddings Task Force, which was set during the pandemic to represent a sector, said 50,000 ceremonies were expected to take place in the month after the 21st of June, and any delay could cost the wedding industry hundreds of millions of pounds. So right now, yeah, a lot of people have been waiting to get married, and yeah, a lot of people want to get hitched, and it's understandable. I mean, with this whole, impeding danger that we have, that sense of impeding danger that we have right now, it's understandable why people want to get married, and they've been waiting also for 2 years. I mean, it's crazy with this whole situation. I mean, a year rather. For this whole year and a half, the people have been waiting. So Sarah Hayway from the UK's Wedding Task Force said that all she saw was scientists saying they might need to wait a little bit longer. But for how much longer and for what? So they say, she went on to say that it's preposterous for the government to suggest that the wedding sector can't be trusted to work in a COVID secure way. But then they have to also understand, it's not really about the COVID secure way, because there's always the possibility of getting and transmitting this disease. So we want to prevent that at all costs. And to do that, the government will have to take the risks, and they will have to follow through with this. They will have to make sure, that the decision will not impede a lot of other businesses in the future. I mean, I get it, but businesses are restricted at the moment and they are suffering. But hopefully that what we are trying to prevent is this impeding for the next year, until 2022. So this is something that we want to prevent at all costs. And the government also has to think about this and decide, also with the COP26 happening in Glasgow. This is just another case that you can see in Glasgow right now. The cases are at a rise. And although it's not down, it's stabilizing somewhat, but it's not completely down yet. So this is just another variant of concern, this Delta variant. So people are concerned, and we have to take a cautious step towards this. And hopefully, as it goes along, we can decide then further what kind of actions we can do to make sure, that this does not even spread anymore as much as it has right now. So just some of the things, that the government is deciding and making sure, that they implement all these things. Hopefully, as we go along in the year to come, this is something, that, we can look back and think, okay, the government made the right choice. Because right now they're not sure. They're at a standpoint. They're at that 4% of the road, and they don't know what to do. And it's understandable to be in a situation where you feel like you want to open it up. But then we shouldn't get too excited, because even after we do, and if we do open it up at the wrong, inopportune time, something even worse can happen. We can face another lockdown for even a longer period. So right now, the government, it's understandable why they are, treading over this water, and they're trying to be cautious, and they're trying to play it safe and play it, instead of playing it by the ear. And yeah, that's just something commendable of what they are doing. But hey, with that being said, if you have any thoughts or opinions, hit me up on those numbers. And that is 07852473473. And with that being said, we will be taking a real quick break, and we will be right back after this. Welcome back to the show. This is Relax Radio with me, Nick, giving you guys company all the way until 6 p.m. That's right. We're talking about all things that is concerning right now in the UK. And like I was talking about, the whole COVID situation, since we're on that topic. Right now, what happened to these care homes early in the pandemic? That is also something of discussion, a matter at hand right now. So there's been a lot of testimony from the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister's former chief advisor, rather, Dominic Cummings, highlighting the issue of care homes during the first wave of the coronavirus. Yeah, that's right. He did speak about this, during a committee meeting, and how he had a lot of these claims as well. And it's just, right now, a lot of people saying that he's going a little bit cuckoo, but, I feel like where there's smoke, there's definitely some fire to it. So where there's something like this, it could be true. But then I believe that this actually did happen. And he did go on to say, that Mr. Cummings said MPs that we were categorically told in March 2020 that people would be tested before they went to care homes. And we only subsequently found out that that didn't happen. And he claimed it was Health Secretary Matt Hancock who did this. So he went on to say, Matt Hancock also rebutted back, and he did say in reply, saying that my recollection of events is that I committed to delivering that testing for people going from hospital into care homes when we could do it. And then I went away and built the testing capacity and then delivered on the commitment. So what actions did the government take, and what guidance did it give the care sector in England, and where there have been more than 40,000 deaths involving the COVID-19. So this is also very concerning. In fact, it's very disheartening to see that there's not a lot of people that did die, and this could have been avoided. And they could have handled this even more responsibly. One of the reasons why Dominic Cummings did bring it up also, and then why he was also frustrated about it, is, the fact that a lot of these people died, and this could have been avoided. And if you're wondering who this is, my name is Nick. I'm giving you guys company on Real Talk all the way until 6. And if you have a dedication or shout out, or, you want to get to know me, or you have something to talk about this, hey, hit me up. Let me know. The numbers are 07852 473 473. Those are the magical numbers. And also don't forget to check us out on social media. We're pretty much on Twitter as well. We got latest tweets, and also on YouTube. We pretty much go live on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, on all the social media platforms. Make sure to go out and check us out. And getting back to the topic at hand. So back in 19th of March 2020, the NHS guidance said that unless required to be in hospital, patients must not remain in an NHS bed. So this was the policy that was implemented to free up beds in advance of an expected surge in the coronavirus cases. So they did bring this thing up. They did bring this policy and this rule where they said, okay, back in 2020, where in 19th of March, they said, unless you are required to be in the hospital, then patients must not remain in these beds, in these NHS beds, because, they want to free up the spaces. Because like I said, cases were enormous. It was overwhelming. And one of the reasons why the government couldn't even not face it. So this policy, like I said, was implemented to free up beds in case of a sudden surge. So back in April 2nd, the rules on discharging to care homes were clarified, saying negative coronavirus tests are not required prior to transfers and admissions into the care home. And even a lot of these elderly patients as well who tested positive could be admitted to these care homes. And according to documents, if measures such as wearing personal protective equipment, or in other words, the PPE and isolation were used, then something like this, could have been avoided, is what they're trying to say. And from the 15th of April, the government said that all patients discharged from hospitals would be tested for coronavirus. So how real is this? How did they really do this is the question. And they did say, okay, they did try to, accomplish that. And by this time, an estimated 25,000 people, 25,000 patients had been discharged to care homes. So in July, there was a panorama. They gathered data from 39 district hospital trusts, which showed 3/4 of people discharged were untested. So these people were not even tested. So they were just sent home without any sort of test, and that was a big concern. So the public health has published research into the impacts of these hospital transfers. It found out that 1.6% of the lab-confirmed outbreaks in care homes that knew about by mid-October 2020 had come from people discharged from these hospitals. So this is something that the government and the people could have avoided this. And why did Matt Hancock not talk about this? Why did he just avoid and pretend like, okay, why did he go and let these people go untested is the concern. So it's not clear, what the percentage is right now of the outbreaks up to the 15th of April, when the testing policies have changed and were the result of all of these patients being moved to these homes. So it is important to note that at this time, though, that there was a lack of testing. So not every outbreak may have been recorded. Also, the figures do count people who were not previously care home residents who were transferred into them from hospitals. So the government has repeatedly said that the decisions to discharge patients from hospitals during this time were made by medical professionals on a case-by-case basis. So according to the case and according to the severity of your case, you would be sent home or you would be tested is what they were trying to say. And they were discharged according to this. So testing back on the 14th of March 2020, the government began prioritizing the most valuable individuals for testing, so including those in hospitals and care homes. So if an outbreak was suspected, well, a handful of residents at a home could be tested. So Reality Check understands that some care providers found access to testing to be very limited at this time. So care home, the care home coronavirus outbreaks, it was at a rise. So between 15th of March till the 10th of May, there was a significant rise in these cases and these outbreaks. And it's crazy, to see that this could have all been avoided. This could have all been overcome with. So on the 15th of April, the Social Care Action Plan was launched as care home deaths in England were peaking at around 400 people a day. 400 people will die a day. You know how terrible that even saying that right now is so difficult to think that 400 people died a day. And this included a pledge to test all care staff who needed one. For example, if they were in a household that was self-isolating. So at that point, just 1,000 care staff holders had been tested out of an estimated 500,000 who work in these care homes. So all the home residents with coronavirus symptoms would also be tested. So on the 28th of April, this was extended to all care staffs and residents, regardless of whether they had symptoms. So it's important to remember that early in the pandemic, it wasn't widely understood that people who didn't have symptoms could pass on the coronavirus. So the PPE equipment also back in March 2020, specific guidance related to coronavirus said that the PPE in these care homes should be similar to that used in hospital settings. And the government launched the National Supply Disruptions Response on the 13th of March. So essentially, this was all a centralized part of, it was just a centralized, it was essentially like a centralized body that was, nursing and caring for all of these people. And it just shows, a lot of these healthcare providers to raise all of their concerns. This is what the National Supply Disruption Response was. So this was followed on the 19th of March by a promise to deliver 300 masks to each care provider. So concerns over PPE peaked. It was at its breaking point at the end of March and early April as bodies such as Unison, the Royal College of Nursing, and care homes themselves highlighted a lot of these shortages. And they were talking about, hey, they're saying we don't have enough PPE equipment. This is of concern because we don't have enough to supply to the elderly at these care homes. So a lot of these, the care homes are provided and generally run privately. So they were responsible for purchasing their own PPE. So many found that their local suppliers were running low and that they were competing with better funded hospitals. So a letter from the government on the 2nd of April recognized the challenges providers may have experienced in obtaining PPE supplies over the recent years. And they promised, that the supplies would be bolstered, it would be boosted, and it would be increased with the support from the armed forces. But on the 10th of April, the government announced a PPE action plan. So this included freeing up to 34 million pieces of equipment to local resilience forums, who would then distribute it to care homes through local authorities. So by this point, 30 Well, like I was talking about, all these regards, and we were talking about all these visiting care homes and all these issues. So another section actually we're talking about is that there was currently no evidence of transmission. That's what they were saying at that time of the COVID-19 in the United Kingdom. So there's no need to do anything differently in care settings at present. So the government's own scientific advisory group for emergency, SAGE, had advised on 10th of February that it's a realistic probability that there is already sustained transmission in the UK, or that it will become established in the coming weeks. So on the 3rd of March, the government released its coronavirus action plan. So they decided, okay, this is what we're going to be doing. This is how we are gonna, be stepping up to this accordingly. And it just showed this. They were decided, okay, we're gonna follow up with this action plan. This is what we're gonna be doing. And the chief medical officer for England, Professor Chris Whitty, told the committee of MPs, that there were cases that could not be traced back to people who had come from abroad. So it was very highly likely, therefore, that there is some level of community transmission in this virus in the UK at the moment. So Italy suspended visits to care homes at this point, so 5 weeks after recording its first case. A day later, nursing homes in Ireland, which represents hundreds of these care homes in Ireland, banned non-essential visits just 6 days after the first confirmed case in the country. So on the 10th of March, Professor Martin Green, head of the Care of England, which represents independent care providers, directed criticism in an independent article at the government for its response. And at this point in England, nearly 800 people had caught the coronavirus. And the articles noted that the generic guidance published by the Public Health of England appeared out of date. It felt a little bit off, and it generated that there was no evidence of transmission within the UK. So at that point, it was getting out of date. It was getting old, and we were coming up with new discoveries along the way. So Professor Green said there is no evidence of a plan, and I'm not even certain they have these plans and are just making them up as they go along. And nevertheless, though, a lot of these things, however, though, some homes were deciding to close their doors even to visitors. So that's the situation of what happened to these care homes early in the pandemic. They've decided, that they were going to close all of their doors to these visitors, with care groups like Barchester and H1 opening non-essential visits on the 10th of March and the 12th of March. So this is when they started deciding, okay, you know what? This is where we're going to bar all of these visits from this point on, just to protect these people. So Scottish Care, a representative body for Scotland and social care in Scotland, advised care homes to close to visits on the 11th of March. So on 13th of March, the government's guidance from the 25th of February was updated to that care home providers are advised to review their visiting policy by asking no one to visit who has been suspected of COVID-19 or is generally unwell, and by emphasizing good hygiene for visitors. And this is something that was really important. And on that same day, Bupa and Four Seasons care homes stopped non-essential visits as well. So it wasn't until the 16th of March that was announced that social distancing should be carried out by everyone, in particular those aged over 70 and vulnerable people. So that day, the Prime Minister was asked about care homes and said, we don't want to see people unnecessarily visiting care homes. By this point, there had been 3,200 cases in England, although the figures given by the authorities at that point was less than half of that. So positive cases are now dated to the day the sample was given. So in a period between 25th of February and 16th of March, 14 deaths of care home residents were reported, along with 30 outbreaks in England's 15,000 care homes. So on 21st of March, guidance was introduced to encourage medically vulnerable people to remain indoors as much as possible until the end of June, a process known as shielding. So on the 24th of March, lockdown did continue to begin, with people ordered not to leave their homes at all except for essential reasons, which didn't include visits to care homes. So you could go to the hospital, or maybe if you want your food, you can purchase your food. But that was very on that. So finally, on the 2nd of April, another document from the Department of Health and Social Care said that friends should be advised not to visit care homes except next of kin in exceptional situation such as end of life. So it got to that point where it was really extreme. It got to that point where, okay, we decided on the 2nd of April, everyone, you cannot visit any kind of care home at no point whatsoever unless the person is towards the end of their life. So that's the only time you're allowed to visit. And that too, it has to be the next of kin. So speaking on the 15th of May, Health Secretary Matt Hancock said that on the basis of the 13th of March guidance, many of care homes providers, for instance, Care UK, at that point stopped their visitors. So at that point, by the time of 15th of May, they finally came out. Matt Hancock did come out and tell, okay, this is the scene. Right now, this many places have stopped allowing visits for care homes. So there's been since extensive changes to this guidance with the restrictions being relaxed as the lockdown eased out. So yeah, right now the situation is changing. People can go to visit, but then like I said, we try to keep it to a minimum as much as possible to avoid any kind of spread, especially with this new variant lurking around, the variant known as renamed rather by the World Health Organization. It's called the Delta variant. So yeah, make sure you guys tune in for more on that as we go along in the show. We're going to be talking about all these things as we move along in the show. And yeah, with that, we're going to be taking our real quick break, and we will be right back after this, taking a look at your time right now. It is 4:05. A good afternoon. Welcome back to the show. This is Relax Radio with me, Nick, keeping you guys company all the way until 6 p.m. That's right, And yeah, in case you guys are wondering what am I doing right now, well, I'm wearing a jacket because it is super freezing right here in the studio. And yeah, if you want to, join me along, and if you have anything you want to say, well, feel free, hit me up on those numbers. It is 07852 473 Those are the magical numbers to hit me on. And we were talking about all things that is going on right now across, the UK and all of that, and the problems that is being faced at the moment. And it just shows, with the situation, it's not as easy, and it's not as once as clear as you'd think. There's no black or white. There's actually a lot of gray involved in between. So yeah, with the issues like this, it's just a matter of time. Hopefully, by the time everything is decided, we can look for better alternatives when it comes to this, and when it comes to the vaccine as well. It's just very important things, right now that is going on. And let's see, how it goes. And other thing that has been happening right now is that the UK has begun actually to process to join, the Asia Pacific trade bloc. So yeah, since right now we are not with the EU anymore, and yeah, we're not part of the EU anymore. Well, this is just another thing that the UK is doing, and it's making big steps. So the 11-member Trans-Pacific Partnership Trade Bloc has agreed to open accession talks with the UK. So the British government, which asked to join the TPP in February, said memberships was a huge responsibility in a post-Brexit world. So they went on to say, a lot of these important things as well. And a group is now expected to be set up to discuss tariffs and rules governing the trade and investment in the UK. So this, just shows right now the UK, with the post-Brexit situation that has happened, is just showing that this is something that we need to do right now. And we are going to be looking for different avenues. And with that, the UK is not expected to join the TPP, which includes Australia, Mexico, and Japan until next year at the earliest. So International Trade Secretary Liz Truss said in a statement, the decision to begin the accession process was excellent news. So she went on to say, that it will help shift our economic center of gravity away from Europe towards fast-growing parts of the world and deepen our access to massive consumer markets in the with all of that, also, she went on to say we would get all the benefits of joining a high-standards free trade area, but without having to cede control of our borders, money, or laws. So she said the government would present plans to Parliament in the coming weeks before starting negotiations. So since Brexit, the government has sought, to replace a lot of these things. And we are at that point, where the government right now, any deal looks like a good deal also. But they have to be wise, because just because, these countries are coming forward to you and trying to look like they're trying to help and they're trying to open new avenues, we have to also, be ready and understand, okay, it might not be as clear as that. It might not be, there's always going to be, there's going to be always issues. There's always going to be a locking of horns between nations when it comes to trade deals and impositions of all of these tariffs. So since the Brexit, like I said, the government has sought to replace a lot of these deals it had with the EU and has yet to sign one with a new country or any trading area for that matter. And they said, that China, South Korea, Taiwan, and Thailand has expressed interests in joining the TPP, which covers a market of nearly 500 million people. That's right. That's almost 500 million people. So the U.S. was initially involved in the process to set up the bloc, but pulled out on former President Donald Trump's first day in office back in 2017. So the TPP's current members are Japan, Malaysia, Vietnam, Singapore, Brunei, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Mexico, Chile, and Peru. And the UK is currently in negotiations, and they're essentially, what they're doing is they are negotiating a trade deal with Australia at the moment. In case you guys are wondering, yeah, the whole Australia thing is going on. It is happening. And a lot of people, although farmers are not quite on board with it as of yet, they're not really happy with it. But we have to understand, just because, they're looking at, the government is saying that they're just looking at it from a very short end of the stick. They're looking at it from a very short point of view. We have to look and broaden our horizons even more. And just because the one part is going to be affected, I think the reasoning is that although there is going to be some effect to the market, at the same time, we have to understand that we can broaden our horizons in other aspects as well. So these are just some of the fears that they have yet to address and yet to negotiate with the farmers as well in the UK. So these are just some of the things that they need to do. They need to reassure their people as well that they're not going to be losing jobs, they're not going to be losing farms, especially when it comes to competitive markets like Australia, who can produce even a more cattle and more grazing area in comparison to the UK smaller business. Because when you compare in Australia, it's more industrialized, the whole meat market, agriculture, for instance. It's way more advanced than in the UK. Although the UK prides itself in quality, what they lose is the lack in quantity. So this is what Australia is going to be making up for. So yeah, since we're talking about this, like I said, the UK is currently negotiating trade deals with Australia and has raised fears around a lot of these, British farmers and domestic markets. Then they're afraid, a lot of these cheaper lamb and beef are going to be affecting the market. So they have, a lot of critics also discussed about this, and they said that an Australian deal would be used as a template for a TPP agreement. However, the UK government right now has said farmers and exporters generally should view such deals as opening up new markets overseas. And they're discussing and saying, okay, this is what is, the whole situation is like this. We're going to benefit from a lot of this. So we have to make sure that, it's right. Okay, fine. We're giving up something like this, or there has been fears like this. But at the same time, we're just focused on the one instead of focusing on the whole positive of this, of how much we can gain in this country, when it comes to exporting to these other countries as well, these developing countries as well, to Australia as well, and how much more the market avenues could open for us. And these are just, some of the things that people, like I said, are concerned, going along with all of these things. These are problems and concerns that the government has to make good on, and they have to discuss this and they have to talk about this whole issue, and I understand Boris Johnson he must be having a lot to contemplate on and pondering, and it feels like there's a lot of things going on, and it does get overwhelming. I mean, if you put me in his position, I wouldn't want that seat because it's really hard. You have to make some real hard choices right there. But talking about that, there's also been some good stuff happening. And one of that is there's been a major project that aims to clear energy hurdles. So like I said, the world at hand right now is planning to get to net zero by 2050. So a major project aims to overcome a barrier to electricity grids that are entirely supplied by renewable energy. So output from these wind turbine varies because wind speed fluctuates, and output from these solar cells changes according to cloud cover and other factors. So this is called a variability. So and overcoming it is crucial for increasing the share of renewables on the grid. So a group of leading nations will invest $248 million over the next decade to solve the issue by 2030. So the government has emerged, the effort has emerged from a clean tech research program called Mission Innovation, or MI. I mean, that's a very fitting name right there. And environmentalists say that the sum's a fraction of the million trillions of dollars of damages that the climate change is projected to wreak havoc on society unless it is curbed. So we have to make sure that this, we cut this out completely. But the 23 members and the governments involved in the program are spending US dollars 5.8 billion per year, more than in 2015. And they say they'll commit more public funds to clean tech if they can afford it. So solutions to all of these things, these are, like I said, these are very pressing matters, and a lot of governments and a lot of the youth as well have been, looking into this and solutions to this whole variability problem. So when it comes to fossil fuels, when you look at fossil fuels, there's only one thing: production. End result. The end result is you get energy. That's it. There's not going to be any problem. There's not going to be any kind of side hassle. Maybe the prices of the fuel will change according, to the demand. But at the same time, when you look at these renewable energies like wind, like water, like air, whatever it is, or solar panels, these are just, things that have this thing called variability, and this will cause problems when it comes to the dependency on these grids. So like I said, they're looking for solutions, and some of this will include energy storage, for example. So smartphone systems which respond to changes in demand, advanced controls, and smart power systems, rather, which will respond to the changes in demands, advanced controls, and artificial intelligence. Yeah, they're going to be using AI as well. So those behind MI said they that half, of the global emissions reductions required to achieve climate targets by 2050 depend on technologies that exist today but are only at demonstration or prototype phases. So these include hydrogen power, advanced battery storage, and zero emission fuels. So solar power and wind power are already widely affordable, but the statement says nations need to develop whole energy systems to match. So the other main areas of the group's research will be hydrogen power, shipping, long distance transportation, and carbon dioxide removal from the air. So yeah, the members of the partnership include the US, the UK, the EU, and China. And yeah, each member has agreed to open 3 hydrogen valleys, clusters of these essentially industrial powered by clean hydrogen fuel. So a few of these partners want to produce some of its hydrogen by splitting it from natural gas and seizing the CO2 emissions by carbon capture technology. So there's a lot of these, it might sound like jargon, but there's essentially a lot of good being involved in all of this. And they want to, catch and capture a lot of this CO2 that is being emitted into the environment. And environmentalists say that this fossil fuel, this hydrogen, is an inefficient tool being promoted by the oil and gas industries, and they want to derive all hydrogen from renewable electricity. So the project also says it will help develop ships capable of running on zero-emission fuels, such as green hydrogen, green ammonia, green methanol, and advanced biofuels. So Tom Burke from the climate think tank E3G said that John Kerry, Bill Gates, etc., and et al. Are all wrong about the importance of R&D and research and development. So deployment of what we already have is what matters, and for which we need bigger bucks. So Jenny Dodson, head of secretary at MI, said there's recognition that more investment is still needed. We need more money, more funding, but all the countries in MI are committed to maintain and seek to increase whatever and whenever possible. So she said that R&D investment levels were always smaller than infrastructure spending, but act as catalysts for an investment. So she gave 2 examples though. One is a $5 million prize for cooling buildings with which produces these technologies, delivering cooling that's 5 times even more efficient. So yeah, the other one is the announcement in 2016 that the Swedish government would work with industries to pilot fossil fuel free steel manufacturing. So yeah, they went on to say that they provided around 50 million euros for pilots and scale plans with additional fundings from industry, she said. And the Swedish government support has provided a lot of these political backing and financial de-risking of the initial demonstration phases of these projects. So yeah, this is now leading to billions of dollars investments by these industries. So a lot of these big industries are investing in this and influencing other also steel manufacturers and companies to develop fossil-free steel manufacturing. So Mission Innovation was first launched back in parallel with the 2015 Paris Agreement on Climate Change. So in case you guys are wondering, that is the COP 25, I think, where 24 rather, where Greta Thunberg made her big speech. And a recent analysis from the development charity Tier Fund, the International Institute for Sustainable Development, and Overseas Development Institute showed that G7 nations were still channeling more cash to fossil fuels and firms than to renewables. So right now they're showing, okay, this is the scene, this is the problem. Right now the concern is we're channeling and we're funneling most of our fundings to these things, to the fossil fuels, and not to renewable energy. And this included COVID-19 grants to the aviation and car industries, which received $115 billion from the G7 countries. And of that, 80% was given with no attempt to force the sectors to cut their emissions in return for their support. So these are things that they have to do, and these are bad things that a lot of these governing bodies have to understand. Yes, right now it's going to be difficult. We're going to have to spend, like they said, for infrastructure, we have to spend a lot of money. We have to spend for building and production of all these things. But at the end of the day, the gains are massive. The things, the way, especially the environmentally, this will be a big game changer. So hopefully the markets will shift and transition towards more greener, more effective means of renewable energy. Let me know what your thoughts are on that. You can always hit me up and let me know. The numbers are 07852-473-473. Feel free to hit me up and let me know. But with that, we're going to be taking a real quick break. Taking a look at your time. It is 4:25. Good evening. Welcome back to the show. This is Relax Radio with me, Nick, keeping you guys company. And yeah, we were discussing about all these problems right now that is plaguing right now the country. And with all relation to all of these things, there has been a lot of talk, with regards to coronavirus, with regards to the environment, and a lot of these Tory problems as well. And then with Boris Johnson and Dominic Cummings also coming up with these statements and coming up and talking about all these things, it just goes to show that right now there's a lot, that a lot of people are confused about, especially with the country and the situation that it is. We're moving past now. We're post Brexit, and we are trying to move forward and get everything sorted out. But with along the way, there has been a lot of these problems. And one of this is right now there's been concern at very serious economy county clusters. So yeah, cluster of the Indian variant, also known as the Delta variant right now, actually, is it's being, there's been a lot of these cases in this specific place, rather, a cluster of this, and it's very serious, and it could affect the easing of restrictions in Wales. So this is what health ministers are saying and discussing on right now. And Ewan Morgan, who said she was very concerned by the cluster in County and was heading towards community transmission. So there are now 35 cases of the variant in Llandudno and the junctions and the Penry Bay as well. So people have been urged to get tested, even if they don't have any kind of symptoms. So they're encouraging people to get tested, because we don't really know the situation. And even if you don't have anything going on right now and you don't look like you have any kind of symptoms, well, still, make sure it's better safe than sorry. Make sure you get tested. And Betsy Cadwell's health board has asked that those without any COVID symptoms to get a lateral flow test at a mobile unit at the Usgol Awil in Minid in Llandudno Junction. So those in the area who do have symptoms have been asked to attend the Conway Business Center for a more accurate PCR test. So Conway County now has the second highest COVID rates in Wales. And updated figures on the spread of the Indian variant are expected to be published by the Public Health Wales later this week. So yeah, the UK government has said up to 3/4 of new cases in England right now could be of the variant, which has been renamed Delta by the World Health Organization. So what they want to do is right now they're taking it so seriously, they want to nip it in the bud, is the best way and best term to actually talk about this. And the major issue with this at hand is that they want to make sure that people can, it's not going to affect the easing of restrictions in this particular part of the UK. And that's, in Wales right now, the situation, like I said, isn't as good as it looks. And Baroness Morgan said the situation in Llandudno could affect further easing of these restrictions. And she went on to say that this is becoming very serious, and we need to make sure that we try and nip this in the bud, and in that particular area. And obviously all of this will play into how we access the situation and assess the situation on Friday. And she said, I don't think we define it quite yet as a community transmission, but it's on its way to becoming that, and that's what it's really what really people in the area need to cooperate with, and to make sure that we can try and suppress this particular variant. And the last thing we want to see is this spreading across the whole of Wales. So she said that 35 cases of the Indian variant had been identified, and also all this mostly had been through the Test, Trace, Protect scheme. So this is what she's been at, and she said that this whole thing has been a very phenomenal success throughout the pandemic, as was extended until March. So she went on to say that we don't know where the 35 people are, and we are tracing all their contacts at the moment. And she said that all of this is happening. It's been a highly successful program so far, and it's been one of the key weapons in our arsenal in our efforts to curb the spread of COVID. And an additional £32 million will go towards the scheme, which has reached 99.7% of all positive cases eligible for the follow-up since it's introduced last June. And the Welsh government has said all these things, So with regards to this, there's been fears amidst the masses especially, and they are talking about, hey, we are concerned. Will this, if this is going to affect us and the easing of the lockdown, what are we going to do? What do we have to do to avoid this? And this is what the Baroness did discuss and said, okay, what we're trying to do is try to assess the situation at the moment and make sure that people follow through with the guidelines set up by the government. And Helen Elefounder, a GP in the economy, said the potential for social mixing during half term was significantly significantly worrying, rather slightly worrying is what she meant. And she went on to say, what's reassuring is that we've isolated these cases and we know where they are, and we can make sure that those patients are isolated and we can try and prevent the spread of the virus any further. But it is half term and we've got a lot of visitors in Wales, and we just need to make sure we're maintaining our social distancing and keeping to the rules, because otherwise there will be an increase in cases where we don't want to go back to where we were in a few months ago. So it's really important, for everyone to remember that it is still very real. The virus is still very real, and we can prevent this and we can stop the cases from increasing. So these are just, some of the things that they were talking about in Wales with the situation. They're trying to trace and catch all these problems, like I said. And it's difficult, when it comes to the variant, it has been difficult to hold the water back, and it's been very difficult for the people in Wales as well. So, with the next 3 weeks review of Wales lockdown restrictions on Friday, Wales health minister said the government would need to spend the week analyzing all of these data, and they want to decide whether they're going to ease the restrictions. But she did not think there would be a movement on reopening nightclubs, especially. So the minister also went on to say that we are very unlikely to see nightclubs open in the next review. And I think we're very well aware that the kind of mingling indoors at a time, when we haven't got vaccine coverage for all those young people who might be attending, is something for us to consider very carefully. So that's unlikely to happen as of yet. And this is just, but they appreciate that the young people had a very tough time, and those industries are keen to get back, and there are support packages in place to make sure they can make it through this crisis. And these are just, some things that the government is relaying to the general public, especially to the youth as well. And she urged people to continue to follow COVID guidelines, and it's important that people recognize that we're not out of this pandemic yet. So it doesn't mean that and we're at this point where we can just ease out of the restrictions, and we don't have to have any regard with following any of these rules whatsoever. But that's going to be a problem. And they went on to say, that she said that it's important that people recognize that since we're not out of this whole thing yet, it's not going to be normal for many, many, many months. So these are just some of the things that is going on. So giving you like a key overview of what all these things are exactly. What are the coronavirus, and what are the variants, and what are they, and how do they happen? Well, when you look at it in a flow chart, especially when you look at it from that point of view, there's been a high number of cases of increased risk of mutation. So the more this virus spreads, the more chances it has to mutate. So we want to prevent that. That's the whole point of this lockdown. This is the whole point why people, even if you are vaccinated, and what if you are carrying the disease and you got vaccinated, it still didn't work, and you transmit it to somebody else, the risk of that mutating is even ginormous, and that's something that we want to avoid at all costs. So thousands of small changes have been seen in coronavirus so far with a little impact. So some new of these new mutations, and some of these mutations actually can lead to a new variant. So every so often, a virus changes in a way that it helps survive and reproduce. So these successful variants can become the dominant type. So there are 3 variants that are spreading more easily right now, and that is the US Kent variant, the South African variant, and the Brazilian variant as well. So these are just a couple of these variants that are going on. And there's right now the Indian variant is also a part of this, and these are all with relation to that, and vaccines adapted to tackle these variants. These are just some of the things right now. These vaccines that they produce, like for instance, we got the Moderna vaccine, we got the AstraZeneca vaccine, we got the Pfizer vaccine. All these vaccines are tailored to fight these particular viruses. But what if it mutates, like what we see right now in the Indian variant, and it's mutating, and it's a different kind of virus? So what happens then? That's when we need to produce more vaccines, and we need to research on all of these. So these are one of the reasons why the Welsh government is doing what they do right now, and they are encouraging, or rather, they are advising people to stay at home and make sure that you right now we're going to keep restrictions as it is. It's difficult, but we have to do this to maintain order in the country. Otherwise, what we're going to do is we're going to struggle. There's going to be a big problem, and people are going to suffer because of all of this. And this is something that we want to avoid at all costs. This is something that we want to get away from as much as possible, because right now the situation demands that we tow with caution, we move with caution, and we make sure that we don't spread this virus anymore that it hasn't already spread. So right now, the biggest fear with the Delta variant is that there is a lot of fears of transmission. It's more transmissible than the other variants and the other viruses that we've observed so far. So this is just one of the things, why we are trying to prevent it, and why the Welsh government also is on their toes, and they are, being very wary and very cautious when it comes to this virus. I mean, it's understandable. We don't want the whole country to push back their whole restrictions and how of them, easing up to their restrictions, and we want that to happen. We want the restrictions to ease out, but at the same time, they are looking at the data, and if the data suggests that they have to postpone and they have to push back the dates, well, they'll have to do it. And there's going to be a review this Friday, so hopefully we'll see. It's good news. Let's see how it goes as we go along. And with that, I'm going to be taking a real quick break, and we will be right back after this. Welcome back to the show. This is Relax Radio. Yeah, in case you guys are wondering, I am still definitely freezing right here because the temperature is crazy. It's at 19, 18 degrees. So yeah, that's super cold. But yeah, I'll be keeping you guys company in this very, very cold evening right here at Relax Radio. So hey, if you guys have anything you want to ask me or you want to talk to me, always feel free to hit me up on those numbers. 07852 473. And the topic, what we're going to be discussing though is how the government has agreed to conditions based on 1.8 billion funding, £1 billion funding deal with the transport for London. That's right. There has been real big concerns regarding this particular matter. So announcing a third extraordinary funding and financing package for the TfL, ensuring the continued running of London's transport network through the COVID-19 pandemic. So the funding, essentially what it does is it protects the continued running of these services in the capital as we recover from COVID-19. So this package ensures TfL will improve the efficiency and pursue a lot of these effective reforms which modernize London's transport networks, including expanding use of the automatic train system and operations. And a deal ensures long-term sustainability of the capital's transport and network by putting TfL on the path to financial sustainability. And the government has of the 1st of June 2021 agreed a third extraordinary funding and financing package for transport for London, or the TfL, worth around 1.8 billion pounds. I'm sorry, 100. But 1.8 billion pounds. That's a lot of money. Ensuring, they want to ensure and they want to make sure that the continued running of London's transport networks will progress along with the government. And all of this roadmap, the government's roadmap right now through the COVID-19 pandemic. So these are just, the things that they are planning to do. And the settlement will provide financial support until the 11th of December 2021, ensuring crucial reforms are accelerated to ensure TfL becomes financially sustainable in the long term. So the government, like I said, the latest, all these things, the latest agreement delivers value for money for taxpayers across the country and recognizes the importance of the capital's economy. So this deal flows the two previous emergency support package agreed in April and October 2020. It takes total the government support to TfL since March 2020 to over £4 billion. That is a lot of money involved. And the government has been doing a lot of support to the TfL, that is Transport for London. So the deal builds on commitments from previous support packages and sets out further measures to be taken to ensure TfL is financially sustainable by April 2023. So these include progressing efficiency and cost-saving initiatives and identifying and a lot of these things, this like identifying all these problems as well. And they're identifying new or increased, sources of revenue for TfL beyond 2023. So Transport Secretary Grant Shapps has said that this 1.8 billion pound financial package will support London and its transport network through this whole pandemic. So this money that we are giving them and we're supporting them with, it will ensure that through this pandemic that is going to be a modern, efficient, and viable network for the future. So the whole plan is the future goal right now. The whole thing, the whole idea is to think of not now, but rather after 20 years, how is this going to affect us? After the next couple of years, how will this be useful to us? So the other thing is Secretary Grant Shapps has said that throughout this process, the government has maintained that these support packages must be fair to taxpayers across the UK, and on the condition that action is taken to put TfL on the path to long-term financial sustainability. As part of today's settlement, the mayor has agreed to further measures that will help ensure that. So within the funding period to December 11th, the mayor of London has agreed to deliver £300 million of savings or new income sources in 2021 2021 to 2022. So identify new or increased sources of revenues for TFL of between 0.5 billion to 1 billion each year from 2023. So prepare. And the other thing is they want to prepare a new plan to accelerate TFL's existing modernization program of 730 million by April 2023 as well. So yeah, the review of the TFL's generous pensions schemes, this is also something that they want to look into as they go along. And the other thing is what they want to do is prepare a new revised medium-term capital investment program so we can earn from all of this. And we know there's not going to be monumental losses with regards to this. So set aside at least £100 million to continue the delivery of healthy streets and active travel programs. And the other thing is that they want to carry out a joint review with the government of demand on London's transport network to ensure service levels are appropriate. So the mayor has agreed to work collaboratively with the DFT on this joint program for implementing higher levels of automatic train operation onto the London Underground, and as is the case on many metro systems worldwide. Over the course of this funding period, though, the mayor and the TfL will make progress towards the conversion of at least one London Underground line to full automation, but with an onboard attendant. So the whole thing is they want this whole thing to be automated. It's got to be autonomous. So we want this to work without any person driving it. But there's always going to be an attendant in case something goes wrong. There's always going to be some safety with regards to that. But the whole plan is to get this whole automatic. And this technology has the potential to offer a more punctual, reliable, customer responsive, and safer service that is less susceptible to human error. And the TfL will lead the market engagement into technology for protecting passengers at the station platforms. So the London Underground is the world's oldest underground railway, and the government is committed to supporting the capital's transport network, ensuring that it meets the needs of Londoners as we recover from all of this, as we recover from the pandemic, and that it is also up to speed and very modern as well, modernized for the 21st century. So that TfL, that is Transport for London, and the London boroughs are responsible for local road maintenance, including bridge repairs, and the London boroughs of Hammersmith and Fulham is responsible for the safety and maintenance of Hammersmith Bridge. However, given the extraordinary circumstances of this whole pandemic, during the period of this agreement, we expect to draw up a memorandum of understanding between Her Majesty's government, the TfL, and the London boroughs of Hammersmith and Fulham to fund the reopening of the Hammersmith Bridge. So initially, to pedestrians. So they want to start off for pedestrians, then cyclists, then river traffic, and depending on cost, to motorists as well. So funding will be conditional. So there's going to be conditions with regards to the funding, and this will be on the following. All parties must scrutinize and agree the cost of the project, and each party agrees to pay a share of the costs. And repair costs are to be led by the London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham and the TfL, and HMG will not directly contribute more than 1/3 of the costs. So that the independent board responsible for the case for continued safe operation, reporting to London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham, will conduct a new assessment for controlled and limited reopening of the Hammersmith Bridge to pedestrians, cyclists, and river traffic once further investigations and report validations are completed by the end of June. So London Boroughs of Hammersmith and Fulham shares the assessment with the government and the Transport for London. So these are things that they will be addressing as they go along, and there's going to be, like I said, major changes with regards to this factor, and there's going to be, like I said, £1.8 billion investments and support systems that will make sure that this is all maintained, and they're going to find and make new ways to actually capitalize on this and make sure that that this all is up to date and maintained as well as that. So this is very important right now with the traveling, with the pandemic there, and it's about we're at that point where we hopefully will get to normalcy very soon, quite soon. I don't want to promise that it will happen on the 21st, but hopefully by the time it does get back there, when we're out and about again and everything's back to normal, these are the things that will be important as well. Public transportation, the metros, and all of these things. And the TfL will lead us into a more convenient and more hopefully safer, environment when it comes to travel from place to place, from point A to point B, this is something, that they are investing in. And this is something that, with regards to this is very important, especially after the whole pandemic is done. Let's see, what the government has in store for us, and that they can bring this up to speed. And this is something, that they can invest in. But yeah, like I said, all these things are important. And like Secretary Grant Shapps said, this 1.8 billion financial package will support London and its transport network through this whole pandemic. So the plan is to get them through until December 11th. That's right, until the end of the year. The plan is to get everyone going until the end of the year. We got to make sure that everything goes on, because this is a backup plan. We have to understand that the government right now, they're not going to be playing games. We need to understand that we have to lay out backup plans, because we never know how long this whole thing might happen, how long this whole situation will occur. And to do that, though, we need to invest in these kind of things. So the other thing is also, throughout this whole process, the government has maintained that these support packages must also be fair to the public, so the taxpayers and all across the UK, and on the condition that this is taken to put TfL on the path to long-term financial sustainability. So this has to be a sustainable plan as well. So the plan is, the promise rather, that they're giving us is that this is going to be a very sustainable thing. We'll be able to carry it forward and do a lot of work when it comes to this in the longer term, not only in the short term. So as part of the settlement today, the mayor, like I said, has agreed to further measures that will ensure that will happen. So these are just, some of the things that they are doing and they've discussed upon. And hopefully this is something, when it comes to local transport and funding, this is going to be a very, very monumental step and very important step for our people, with regards to all of these things that is, in the UK that is going on. And like I said, the TfL funding is very important. This is something that we need right now. Even though there is a pandemic and there's not that many people going out and about, well, we have to remember that this is all for the plan. When we get back to normalcy, life is going to be hard, especially, when everything gets back to normal. It's going to be very, very very rocky first few steps with that regards. So what the government wants to do is they want to ease the public into this. And to do that, also, we have to maintain these important services as well. And with that being said, we are going to be taking a real quick break, and we will be right back though after this. And taking a look at your time right now, it is 5:18. Good evening. Welcome back to Relax Radio, RELAKS, without the positivity because we don't believe in that X. And this is a real talk with me, Nick, keeping you guys company and keeping you up to date. What is happening across in and around the UK, rather, and across the world as well. And the situations right now, going on. And there's been a lot of these talks, going on with there. When you think about, all the problems right now that we are facing, sometimes it takes a little step just to take a little bit step back and take a breather because there is it's overwhelming when you look at the news. Sometimes even me, when I look at it, read a newspaper or watch the news, even it just throws me off guard because there's so much going on right now. There's a lot of these clusters of being spoken of. There's a lot of with regards to the education system as well, and how the EU and the UK is having their tensions, and all of this, the Australian deal, all of these things. There is a lot of these things, and sometimes you just want to take a real step back and take a breather from all of these things to clear your mind a little bit and decide how the things are gonna go. And the other thing, like I said, we were talking, like I just mentioned earlier, the farmers right now are opposing the UK-Australia trade deals as it is growing. It looks apparent like that is something that's going to happen. And the government is not shying away from all of this. They are saying, okay, this is what we're going to do, and people will have to accept this. So opposition among UK farmers is growing towards a trade deal closing to being concluded. It's going to be concluded with Australia, and they say there's no meaningful safeguards in place to stop farmers being undercut by these cheap imports. However, some places, and including farmers in Australia, believe it's an opportunity for positive change. I mean, that's how it starts. That's what they like to say, when they want you to buy into something, this is just how they begin, if you really look at it from that point of view. But hey, if you have any thoughts or opinions on that matter, like how the UK and the EU deal is going to be affecting the farmers and all of that jazz, well, hit me up and let me know. The numbers are 07852473473. Feel free to hit me up and let me know what your thoughts are. And also, don't forget, you can download the app from the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store to carry us all day, every day, 365, 24/7. And don't forget to check us out on Instagram and Facebook as well. We're pretty big on social media. We're going all on those social media platforms. And also check us out on TikTok as well. We got some bunch of videos coming up. And you will see a bunch of videos of yours truly on there. So just make sure you guys check us out. And with that, like I said, we are talking about all the things that the farmers right now are having issues with in regards to the UK and Australia trade deals. And David Barton is a beef farmer right now in Cotswold, and his cattle he has like 200 cattle are outdoors for most of the year, grazing some of the most beautiful hillsides in England. And he said that, they move from field to field in a way that locks up carbon from the atmosphere, assisting in the fight against climate change. So this also affects, a lot of these things that a lot of species come in, and it involves essentially biodiversity. So they all, even he was talking about this thing, and he says, it's very difficult that ministers are being dishonest, and they say that, people like them aren't afraid of a free trade deal, but we've been given absolutely no assurances about what standards will be upheld. So Mr. Barton argues that the government has backfired on the pledge to allow independent scrutiny of these trade bills before they are signed. And unless the government gives us the support we need, the situation is going to get worse, and it's going to be dire, and it's not going to be me, it's going to be everybody. And they are concerned, about the UK agriculture, as it's going to be chucked under the bus. That's what exactly the terms that he's used. And in response, the government says the Trade and Agriculture Commission, an independent advisory board set up to inform government trade policy, will be able to examine the text of the agreement once all parts are concluded. So farmers in Australia are allowed to use some hormone growth promoters, pesticides, and feed additives that are banned in the UK. So this is also of concern if you think about it a lot. This is one of the reasons why they are concerned as well. Like, the UK, we pride ourselves in quality, and we have a lot of these strict rules and guidelines that we have to follow. But in comparison to Australia, they don't really follow the same kind of guidelines that we follow. So the way we look at it, the way we look at quality and the way they look at quality is two different sides of the spectrum. So like they said, farmers are allowed, like in Australia, to use a lot of these growth hormones as well. And that can also be harmful for people, and pesticides. These are just harmful things. So according to the National Farmers Union, or the NFU, Australian farmers are able to produce beef at a lower cost of production and could undercut farmers in the UK. So this is of rising concern, and why these farmers are against it, and they're totally against it. You can see that none of them are happy. They are not on board with this, and they're calling out the government, saying that they've backtracked from this official, independent review of all of these things. So according to Australian governments, though, the figures that 65% of all Australian farms are between 100 to 400 head of cattle. So that's how much cattle they have. That's 65% more. That's more than the UK does. So farms of over 5,400 head of cattle count for at least 30% of the country's beef cattle. So farms with 400 to 5,400 head of cattle count for 52% of its beef cattle. So by contrast, the average beef cattle herd in the UK is 27 animals. So that is a very stark contrast in comparison to Australia. So the chief executive of 10 leading UK groups, including Sustain and the WWF, recently wrote to the government describing Australia as a laggard on a global climate action. They said a tariff-free deal would force UK farmers to compete with more environmentally destructive farming methods. And the view from Australia, though, is very different. And yeah, they're talking about the negatives as well. But the view from Australia, though, they are saying all these things, and farmers from Australia are saying that they don't really use any chemicals, antibiotics, or hormone growth promoters, and they have cattle and all this. They go with free range grazing and all of that. So Ms. Keeler is keen. They say one of these things is that they are glad that their products, especially Australian products, are actually of high quality. And that is, what they are trying to reassure. A lot of the farmers in Australia are trying to reassure our UK farmers. I mean, this is just sad, when the government is supposed to be doing that job. And, these are just, some of the things that a lot of people are afraid of, especially with this trade deal. And they say that labeling, especially for all of this, the products are labeled for consumers, and there's focus on all of this education. It's going to support a lot of people if we can label this properly. So exciting opportunities are abound. So Patrick Holden, the chief executive of the UK Sustainable Food Trust, said the trade deal negotiations were an exciting opportunity for the Prime Minister, and ahead of hosting the crucial COP26 climate summit in November, which will aim to raise ambitions on tackling global warming, the UK could lead the world by formulating a global agricultural trade framework that helped nations meet their climate change commitments. And this is what they are saying. This is what Patrick Holden is saying as the chief executive of the UK Sustainable Food Trust. And he went on to say that we are not self-sufficient in food. And Mr. Holden says that we need new trade deals, whether long distance with Australia, hopefully with carbon-friendly shipping systems, or whether closer to hand, that food needs to come from farms which are part of the solution rather than the problem. So the Australian National Farmers Federation is calling on the UK and the Australian governments to establish a joint research and development facility on climate change and agriculture alongside the free trade agreement. So the red meat and livestock industry in Australia has set itself the target of being carbon neutral by 2030. So the plan is in Australia to get everything normal and up and about by 2030. Their plan is to get all their cattle and cattle grazing to carbon neutral, according to the Meat and Livestock Australia, or the MLA. So yeah, the MLA, the research and development body for red meat in Australia, also says that greenhouse emissions from the industry right now have fallen by almost 60% since 2005. So like I said, all of this, they're saying right now they are doing their best when it comes to dealing with this greenhouse gases and transmissions, and they're trying to reduce this as much as possible. And they've done, like they said, the MLA has shown that at least 60% of this has fallen since 2005. So the UK government spokesperson said, any deal we sign will include protections for the agricultural industry and will not undercut UK farmers or compromise our high standards. But then it's confusing. Like I said, they're saying all of these things, but then it's apparent that something else is actually happening. So what's happening? I mean, what is up? The UK government is confused. The people are confused, rather. The farmers are confused. They're saying, why aren't we getting reassurance from the government? And although they're giving us these reassurances, are these feasible? Is this actually feasible? So They went on to say, the spokesperson in the UK government spokesperson said, hormone-fed beef is banned in the UK and it will not be allowed to enter the UK market, and this won't change under any FTA. So yeah, these are just some things that they were addressing, and yeah, like I said, farmers had their concerns about this and regarding this, and with regards to this, it is very troublesome for a lot of farmers, and they're afraid, and their fears are not unwarranted. These fears are these are substantial fears that they have, and these are concrete fears that the government is having right now, and it's just part of the whole scheme of the situation. So hopefully they can find and figure out a way to absolve this whole issue, and let's see how it goes. As the time goes by, only time can tell with regards to this situation. And with that, we are going to be taking a real quick break, and we will be right back after this. Welcome back to Relax Radio with me, keeping you guys company all the way until 6 p.m. That's right. We're talking about all these things that is going on in the UK right now. And yeah, the weathers have been the hottest of the year for the third day in a row right now. So apparently it's been the hottest day of the year in the UK for the third day in a row. So temperatures have reached 28.3 degrees Celsius in Northolt, West London on a Wednesday afternoon. So it beat the previous high record of 26.1 degrees Celsius in Cardiff on the first day of the meteorological summer. So, but there have been showers and even thunderstorms in some areas, with these spreading north as the day progressed. So more warm weather is expected for many parts of the UK, but it will then start to cool off. So this is what a lot of these, weather forecasts are saying. And yeah, the weather, like I said, is getting warmer. That's what the whole of the UK is getting warmer as the day goes by. And this is one of the things, of global warming. Also, we got to attribute it to that. If you got to talk about facts, this is just, some of the things that is going on in, especially in our planet right now. If we have to be aware of all of these things, we have to make sure that we know as a fact what the situation might call for. And these are just some things that are being discussed. And as I said, all these things are of major concerns to us and our bodies involved as well. And like I said, with all the coronavirus situation going on right now, it's just, all a part of it. And if you look at since we were talking about COVID-19 and all of that right now, Britain, like I said, his love of queuing helped the UK coronavirus rollout. And the health secretary has said at jabs were given according to need, not ability to pay. So Matt Hancock said there's been no special treatment, no queue jumping for politicians, footballers, or royalty, which helped show the system was fair. But he also confirmed that 3 in 4 adults in the UK have now had their first jab. But there are concerns also over what the fact remains is, how many people more that need to get their jabs on is just, it just shows, that they've now had their jabs, but there is also the possibility and the problem of a rising of these COVID-19 cases. And, with regards to all of that. So this is just, a factor that they are right now, they're focusing on. And it's just crazy with the situation going on. I hope, like I said, with the cases going up on, reflecting on the UK's vaccine rollout at an Oxford conference, also in Oxford, the health secretary said that Prince William, our future king, waited in that same line for his jab a couple of weeks after me. No special treatment, no queue jumping. And he said it was important for the public to know people can't buy their way up the queue. And he went on to say, I know there are a few eyebrows were raised when I said that the film Contagion shaped my thinking about our vaccine program. And I should reassure, especially government scientific advisor Sir John Bell, that it wasn't my primary source of advice. But when I watched that film, a penny did drop for me, and that the power of the vaccine would be so great, and we would have to think very hard about who to protect and in what order. So famous faces endorsing the vaccines include the Queen and England's Deputy Chief Medical Officer, Professor Jonathan Van Tam, also helped encourage take-up. And Mr. Hancock has said all this. So he added that while he was aware that this isn't a vaccine World Cup, confidence in COVID vaccines have been sky high in the UK, and we continue to top the list of places where people are willing to take or have taken a COVID vaccine, around 9 in 10 of us. So yeah, unfortunately, even with the 3/4 of the adults having received at least one dose, there's still a way to go. And the first dose of the vaccine gives reduced protection against what will soon be main type of coronavirus in the UK. And in case you guys are wondering, that is the Delta variant. In other words, the Indian variant as well. It's been recently renamed by the World Health Organization as the Delta variant. So yeah, like I said, this is just, part of it. So the variant was identified, like I said, in India. So there's been a small portion of elderly and vulnerable people who are not vaccinated or who did not get full protection. So, but this is a large country and there's still a number of elderly or vulnerable people. So if this strain of virus truly is as infectious as some estimates suggest, it will find those people, and we could see large numbers going into hospitals every person vaccinated makes it harder for the virus to spread and harder to find them. So we don't even know exactly how infectious this thing is, the new variant, but that's the key job of the next few weeks, finding out whether this virus we'll be facing in summer could be and could cause rather a third wave, or hopefully just a ripple. That's what they're saying. And we're with regards to that, we're trying to limit as much of the fear, but then at the same time we have to understand with the fear involved, this is just another part of it, and we have to look out for something like this. So meanwhile, speculation continues over whether the government will ease all remaining restrictions in England on the 21st of June. And asked whether mask wearing and or work from home guidance may continue past that point, Mr. Hancock said there was nothing in the data to suggest the UK was definitively off its tracks. So the decision on whether to ease the rule fully depends on how successful the COVID vaccine, it can sever the link between cases and deaths, Mr. Hancock said. So Prime Minister Boris Johnson said, I'm sorry that's frustrating for people. I know that people want a clear answer about the way ahead for 21st of June, but at the moment, we just got to wait a little bit longer. And the number of new cases reported daily continues to rise with 4,330 new cases and infections reported only on Wednesday. So another 12 deaths within 28 days of a positive test has also been reported. So the proportion of deaths involving coronavirus in England and Wales is at its lowest level for more than 8 months, according to figures from the Office for National Statistics. So it just goes to show, with the matter at hand, this is, another relief. And the government, although they're saying the cases has been low and the data, like I said, has been encouraging. And a lot of, places, when you look at it, they're, like I said, they say that the data, nothing suggests in the data that we're not going to get out of this whole lockdown situation and restrictions. But at the same time, we have to proceed with caution. So speaking on Wednesday, Boris Johnson said he remained cautious as it was unclear how protected the population would be against this new surge. And he said data on that was still ambiguous, and scientists needed longer to look at it. And he says that he knows that people are frustrated and they want to get a clear answer about the way ahead of 21st of June. But at least, at the moment, we have to wait a bit longer. So that's precaution on the Prime Minister's side. And, he's in his defense, he's talking about all these things. So the debate over whether or not to end restrictions on the 21st of June is linked to concern over recent rise in cases and spread of this whole more transmissible Delta variant. So these are just some of the concerns that they are having with regards to this kind of matter. And the rise in cases has led to a lot of scientists suggesting a delay to the last stage of the government's roadmap in England. So they're saying, okay, people want to get out, but at the same time, the way things look at the moment, it doesn't really paint a really pretty picture. So we have to make sure that we watch out and we try to, as best as we can, prevent this from happening. And to prevent surges from happening, what we have to do is we have to push the date back a little further than expected. So these are just some of the things that they are talking about, and all these scientists are discussing, and they are suggesting to the government that we take different precautions as necessary when moving forward, because the situation right now is not as well as you'd think. The situation isn't as clear cut as we'd like to think, and the virus is still there. The very threat of the virus is still alive there. So only time can tell with how we can proceed moving forward from all of these things. Hopefully there will be a way that the government can find an alternative when it comes to these things, and maybe hopefully give good news by the time the results come in of whether we're going to be out of this lockdown completely or not. Are we going to make sure that we get out of this whole thing? Because people are frustrated, and it is frustrating. People want to get back to normal. A lot of industries also want to get back to normal. It is totally understandable, but at the same time, we have to account for the possibility of the risk. So there's going to be risks involved in something like this. So to avoid any further problems, we have to make sure that we watch out for any possible surges. So this is just, some of the things that we are looking to prevent, and the government is making their way. And I know it is frustrating. I know you want to get out there. You want to meet your friend, your lover, want to get back to normal, but we have to understand, just because restriction looks like it's about to ease up, we shouldn't rule out the fact that the virus can potentially still spread. And if it spreads, it's going to cause even more complications as it is. So according to all of the data, according to all of these data, the government will proceed as they see fit. So let's hope for the best as they go along. And moving along with that, it is about that time of the day for me to head on out of here. But don't worry, I'll be catching you guys again tomorrow. Same time, same place. And yeah, hopefully we got my buddy Kevin on board with us tomorrow. So make sure you guys tune in for more interesting conversations on that. And with that, my name is Nick, and I'm out of here. Peace and much love.